But it's going to be a big Rob show on the main show this week.
Yeah. Yeah. I set aside. I have my stool for my feet to put up and let you just go.
Speaking of feet.
Yeah.
I predicted it on the show last week. I had it feeling like I always have like a little soreness in my joints and everything else like that. But last week when we recorded, it felt like a little bit more sore than it usually does.
Right.
And I felt the bloat foot coming.
Right. Your
bloat Wednesday.
Your bloat foot sense was tingling?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it hit me on Wednesday and it was bad. Oh. It sucked. I got the ice packs. I got everything propping it up and so on and so forth. And then it was just the one day. In the past, it's been like a multi-day occurrence.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm a little swollen, but I really think if I'm going to do the theories on it, I definitely think a lot of it has to do, and again, this is not a weather podcast. I'm not talking about the weather, but with the extreme heat that we had, I think that kind of affected things.
Right. You weren't eating any shellfish lately, were you?
No.
Okay, then that's the only other explanation I would have.
I get the pork fried rice from the Chinese place.
Oh, maybe you got the gout. Maybe that's what it is.
Now, see, that's the thing. When we talked about this before, but when I went all those years ago, this has to be at least 7 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And I went and had all the tests and I'm like, could you test for this? And could you test for that? And they did the blood work and they did the MRIs and they did the x-rays and they did the this. And they're like, yeah, we ain't got nothing. $26,000, please.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I have your retirement, please?
Right. The insurance covered a good chunk of it, but there was still a lot that we had to cover, just the way that insurance works with that sort of stuff. And then when I start going to the doctor again this year, I mentioned it to them. They were more concerned about my breathing and my asthma, giving me the boost on the inhaler gimmick that I have.
Mm-hmm.
I had my follow-up with them like 2 weeks ago. And obviously, it would have been nice if it would have been like the day that my foot was all fucked up, and I can go to the doctor and be like, look at this, right? Help. But like I said, I know how to, I know the signs. I know how to deal with it. I know what to whatever. I think I just take the advice wrong. When everybody says you got to eat the chicken and rice, I don't think they mean sweet and sour chicken and pork fried rice. I think
yes, that's what I eat, so... But while we're on the subject of medical and doctor stuff, I do have one small thing to get off my chest.
All heat, no heaters.
So... every year I have to go see my cardiologist, and it's once a year. For a while there, it was every 6 months after the kerfuffle. So, but then when they switched me to a year, and they're like, well, when do you want to go? I said, well, I would like to go to June, July, because I don't want to be going in the winter. Then if there's snow or whatever, you have to postpone whatever. So I'm like, okay. So I would go to my cardiologist, and they'd be like, all right, you're fine. You got a clean bill of health. You're the healthiest man who's ever been in the office. Some of this may not be true. And they would go, now time to set, go out to the thing and pay your bill, which my insurance does cover a lot, and get your 1 year appointment. And Joe, every year I go out to the secretary and I go, blah, 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 we're covered. And I want to set up my 1 year appointment. And they proceed to tell me our calendar doesn't go out for a full year. So we can only go out 11 months. And I said, well, I don't want to keep going around 11 months. Then you're going to move the appointment. And they're like, so what we'll do is we will contact you and let you know. We'll schedule it for you. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And they never tell you when it is. It will be like a month. Like when it's 11 months out and they could tell you what it is, they will. They don't. They wait until next year, 1 month before your appointment, and they mail you a letter and say your appointment is this day, which has always worked. It didn't matter. But so my appointment should be for June or July. Wasn't 100% sure. And I get the call like a few weeks ago, and it's like, this is the cardiologist. Your Dr. Voice is the cardiologist. He's like, he's not in the office the day of your appointment. So we have to reschedule. And I'm like, well, I didn't even know when it was, so this is fine. Then they proceed to tell me, do you want Dr. Voice in the office or do you want the assistant? Like, you can have the assistant. Now, this was a June/July appointment. If you want Voice, we could squeeze you in December. And if you want the assistant, we could squeeze you in October. I'm like, so like 3 to 5 months because you made my appointment when Voice is going to go golfing. That's my fault? You know? Like, they're like, these are your two choices if you want to get your ticker checked out. I'm like, all right, give me October with the assistant so he can, ask me questions and I could just go, fuck you. Like, listen to my heart. Like, don't even ask me because it's not getting to the doctor. Don't ask me if I smoke, what I drink, what I do, because you're a yutz and you're never going to, move this information on. So just hook me up to the machine and tell me whether or not my heart's going to explode. And we're good to go.
The doctor doesn't need to be there for that. The assistant could hook you up to that same machine, right?
Right, but the doctor, because when I go, a nurse will hook me up to that machine. And then will give, they have the big paper readout with the beep, 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 whatever on it. And he'll look at it and say, yeah, you look good. How do you feel? And he'll ask me a couple of questions and move on. So now the assistant is just going to do that. You know what I mean?
All
but
right.
I'm going to treat the assistant like shit. I'm going to treat the nurse nice. But I'm just going to be, does it look good? All right, no more fucking questions. Let me go. Because like I said, if the regular cardiologist barely cares about the questions that they ask me, how much do you think the assistant cares?
Well, I assume the assistant might care more because her job is more tenuous than the guy whose name is on the outside of the building.
There you go. Maybe. We'll see. You know what? I'll get back to you in October.
Right. Now, I'm more concerned about something else that you mentioned there because my doctor has a calendar that goes 11 months or more than 11 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Are they saving money by buying only 11-month at a time calendars?
Well, when I say calendar, I mean the program.
I know.
I know what you're saying. So but they can't afford a program that's 12 months.
So because what I would do is, so let's say my appointment's today, as we record this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would make a note for myself a month and a day from now.
Right.
To call them back and say, hey, I was in last month. I'm here to schedule my year appointment. It's 11 months. Let's do it. So it lines up to the year, right?
Right. And then that would happen and the doctor would be going to play golf and I'd have to move it again anyway.
Fair enough.
Because that's what I'm saying when I go in. He's playing golf, isn't he? No bones, will not be, and no punches will be pulled, Joe.
All right.
And they will when I get there, because I won't give a fuck by then.
And I'll be quick. I was a relatively uneventful weekend with us. It was us opening up our pool.
Ooh, I can't wait to come up and skinny dip.
By all means, it's again we open it in perfect time for the weather to hit 70 degrees and raining.
Right, and 40 degrees at night later this week.
I'm all right with that.
I am too, Mr. No Air Conditioning.
I may have mentioned due to the weather that we had, and again, we're talking too much about the weather on this episode, but it's related to other things, right?
Right, or not enough.
We had some pretty severe winds, and it ripped our winter cover, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, we want to go and get a new winter cover and do the whole reclosing of everything now, or just say fuck it and hope for the best when we open it up in May. Okay. And we just said, fuck it, we'll hope for the best when it opens up in May. And we were expecting it to be like a green swamp, just muck and crud.
Right.
And it wasn't. It was strangely there was a big pocket of mud and crud at the bottom of the pool, but it was just where the hole in the cover was.
Okay.
But it was a pretty big hole. I might include the picture with
the show notes
post for this show. Yeah, I don't know if I deleted it yet. No, I can do it. So I'll submit that to go with this. So we're like, okay, that's not that bad, but and this has been it's been a year, obviously, or 7 or 8 or 9 months, whatever it is, since this happened. When we were closing the pool last time, obviously, as you're closing a pool, water gets all over the place and things spill and whatever happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some fat slob, while he was closing the pool, slipped and fell on the filter.
Oh, Asa. Go ahead.
And it definitely sounded like something broke on the filter.
Mm-hmm.
And April's father came up and he looked at it and he's like, nah, I don't know. Everything looks okay. It should be all right. It should run just fine,
Right.
And then we hooked it all up and it wasn't running fine. There was like one little tiny leak that was happening.
Right.
And I can't even explain how it all works, but like if you've seen like a pool filter and you take all the shit apart, there's like a plate that screws onto the front that like the main pump like hooks into that and then it has like a washer on it and everything else like that causes the seal. The part that comes out of that had a crack in it. So we're like, okay, let's look up online to see how much this costs, and it says that it's going to cost like $250. We're like, okay, it sucks, but it is what it is. We got to do, we got to do what we got to do. We got to open up the pool, right?
Yeah, and but you save some of that money by getting the part late for your car. So,
well, no, that was. Did we talk about that on here or no?
Yeah, you said that like if you got the part early, it would be $300. If you waited a week, the part would be $100 and some.
Well, it was supposed to be $150. Well, that was another thing. It was supposed to be $150. It ended up being like $170. Plus, there was like a crank that needed to be replaced, which was another $40.
Was it the driver that the crank? Is that that needed to be replaced?
So that the car stuff ended up being just like a hair over $300, all said and done, with like tax and labor and everything else like that, right?
Now you have filter bills.
Well, okay, so we go to the pool place. We're looking around, and we're like, okay, this looks like everything okay over there, Todd.
Forgetting because we jumped into this, turning off my notifications on my phone.
Shame, shame, shame.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mister. It's never happened to you, but go ahead.
It is not. Again, in I don't know how many years we've been doing this, but I think it's happened less than like 5. So
right. So
anyway, so we go to the pool place. Looking at the parts section, we're like, okay, this kind of looks like one, but it's like a little like maybe it's like this is a little bit newer one. So we get like one of the employees and we're like, hey, here's our manual, here's our order, like here's our like model number for our thing. We think this should work. What do you think? And then like, well, let me go ask the boss. He looks at it, he's like, no, that's not going to work. Okay. He goes, we have a bunch of those filters in the back. Let me go see if we've got one of those sitting in the back. And if that piece is still on it, you could just have it.
Right.
So he went in the back, found one of the filters. That was our filter. Had the piece on it. And he said, here you go. Do you need the screws with it too? Nope. Okay. Thanks for coming up. And like, not like we came up there and like, we bought our pool here and, it's warranty or whatever it is. Like, we just came in as like 2 schlubs saying like, hey, we think this is the piece we need. And they ended up giving it to us for free, which was really nice.
That was nice. I would have took whatever parts they said. Do you need these too? Yep. You never know.
There was one like little clip that they wouldn't give us. But it was okay because we had the clip. But it was like the screws, the washer, everything else. They're like, you want all these? We're like, no, we're good with those. The clip, and they're like, no, you can't have that. Whatever, right? Let's not push it.
Right. That's probably the hard part to get.
Yeah. Now, he did say, he goes, when you're putting it on, he goes, and you screw the new face of the thing on.
The
and
face?
You're putting the face. And you're putting the 2 pieces together. You don't want to pull it directly. You kind of want to, like, shake it so that, like, you don't, like, snap it again. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I may have, like, hurt my shoulder doing that, trying to shake it in.
Mm-hmm.
But we got it in. We got the filter running. We cleaned up the mess that was in the pool. We shocked it. Next morning, all the stuff had come to the top. Water was still a little cloudy. Mixed up the chemicals. Kids went swimming in it on Monday. Perfect. No problem. And we didn't have to spend like $250 to buy a goddamn new motor for our filter because some fat slob fell on it.
Asa.
Come on.
No, I know. It was you.
But that was the extent of my weekend. We need a follow-up on your trip to the big scary city, going to New York and going to see either the Rolling Stones or the Ramones. I can't remember which.
It was the Rolling Stones with Free Jack, Captain Jack's father, and Harry Dean Stanton. So that's what they all look like to me anyway. So, but we went into the city and it worked out. I love the train ride from the train station. A delight. I've never ridden a train, Joe. That was my first time. I've ridden a subway, but like an actual, like on the tracks with the, the railroad ties and train track. I've never been on one.
Okay.
So that was kind of cool. And literally it only takes, you get it's called the Secaucus Junction, like I said. And the ride into just outside, like you literally come up under Madison Square Garden. 12 minutes from where we're at. And then later on when we went to Giant Stadium, it was another 12 minutes on the trip. And it was like 8 to get in and out of the city and like 4 to get in and out of, the stadium, I think. So I think it was like $20. I was like, and then like $30 to park for the day. So instead of like doing double duty and moving all around and fighting the traffic after the concert, that was good. So I really liked that. The only thing was I wish they cleaned the windows on their train because I couldn't take any pictures out the window because it was literally with the dirtiest windows I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh, but my goodness.
Whatever. So we went into the city first. Josh his brother maybe was going to be there and his girlfriend, like they were like, oh, they had running around, but they didn't make it. So we're like, okay. So we went to that pizza place that we always go to. It's pretty much Grande of New York for me, Joe, because I love it so much. We got to Hawaiian. That was fantastic. And then we went over to Midtown Comics for a little bit. Josh bought some stuff. I passed on buying the second helm, the Sandman helm edition, because they didn't have the San Diego Comic-Con one. But that was fun. And then we took the train back to the car, dropped off what Josh bought, and then we went to the concert. Now, we were running super late because we were just dragging our feet and doing stuff. We got to MetLife Stadium as whatever the opening band, John Baptiste, was finishing up. So I never saw any of that. I'm not heartbroken. That's not there who I'm there to see. Would have liked to see him if I was there. We had to kill a little more time because Josh had to run his paper ticket opportunity with the box office. You know
did it work?
Yes, it worked. So he ends up telling me, they're like, okay, so we're where we have to go in. And they're like, all right. And so he's like, oh, my phone died and my tickets were on my phone. They're like, well, you have to go to the main box office, which is pretty much almost on the other side of the stadium. He's like, do you want to wait here or do you want to come with me? I'm like, take a fucking guess. Right? So he's like, all right, I'm going to go to hold my phone. I'm like, so I'm not holding your phone. He goes, well, I don't want him to see it. I said, I get that. But God forbid anything happens. I want to be able to contact you.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Because again, just in case you're in the big scary city, something happens.
Right. Well, anything. But it's this. And he's like, well, what if they see it? I'm like, well, turn the sound off. Don't have your notifications go off. Only a dumb person would leave it like that, right?
Or turn your phone off to say it's not on. It's not working.
Right. Something. So he's like, okay, I'll put it in my pocket. And he just went. I was like, can you see it? I'm like, no, just go. So he goes and he comes back and, now we have to go up to the nosebleed section. So I'm like, did it work? He's like, yeah, here's your ticket. And he proceeds to tell me, he goes, there are people there, berating the people at the box office. Like, oh, I bought my ticket through a third party and now it's not working. Well, that's on you. Well, this is that, and Ticketmaster, and like they're screaming at them. And Josh walks up, he's like, my phone don't work. Can I just get a paper ticket, please? And they're like, not a problem. You're super polite. Like he said, like, because he was nice to them. And they're like, super, here's your tickets. They're printed out, go. He brought them back and we got them. And you just like, you have to put them in front of a scanner to get in and then in your pocket. So that was good. So that was the story up to the nosebleed seats. Now, so we get to our section. Our section's like the first couple rows of the highest tier of MetLife Stadium. Joe, I don't know if you know this. I have an extreme fear of heights. So I get up there, and we have to do the bit where we have to go, like, we have to walk in. You're at the edge, like, of a full, like, 3 floors. Well, it's not even 3 floors. It's like 3 rows of a stadium, which are higher than floors. I don't know how many feet above the ground we are. So I'm getting a little, like, dizzy. So we turn around, we go up. I have to walk past a couple of people to sit in our seats. And you know how stadiums are. They're, like, at a 45-degree angle, like all the seats. So, like, the person's head is at your shins in front of you. And I'm super anxious. I'm afraid I'm going to go end over end and off the thing. And Josh is like, what's the matter? I tell him, I said, I have a fear of heights. He goes, oh, if I'd known that, I would have what? I said, what? Got 4 times as much seats and got lower? I said, I'm good. I just need to not think about it. And when the lights go out, you can't see as well.
Yeah.
And then the music hits and the adrenaline hits, and I'm good. But when we had to leave and we're all cattle calling out, and you have that look of that tumble, like you could tumble off into space, it was back. But it was literally only 30 seconds and then like 10 minutes sitting in my seat. But sitting in my seat, I knew I wasn't going to fall. So I'm okay. Then the music hits. They introduce the Stones. They come out and they proceed to like blow up the arena, Joe. It's ridiculous. Mick Jagger, like fucking energy, going crazy. Obviously, they start with Start Me Up. So I'm like, okay, I can get behind that. Then they play Get Off My Cloud. I have the set list in front of me. They have Shattered, because Shattered's about New York, so they play that there. And that's never been played on this tour. So like they're as I'm looking at the set list, they're like, this is this tour debut, haven't done it yet. Then they play a song off the new album, which I'm fine with. Altogether, they played. No, you know what? They played 3 songs off the new album. I listened to the new album before I went. It's really good. Is it classic Stones good? No, but it's really good. And the first song that they play is called Angry, and they fucking crushed it, right? So I'm like, I'm super into this. It's only rock and roll, but I like it. Wild Horses, which was the song you vote on as you're going to this thing. You get 1 vote, and they give you 4 songs altogether, and you get to pick the one you want. I forget what the other 3 were, but it was either way. It was going to be Wild Horses in a Walk, if you get my meaning. There were like 3 deep cuts.
Yeah.
So I was like, Wild Horses. Then they play Mess It Up, Tumbling Dice.
Okay.
What?
I was going to ask, because would Tumbling Dice be considered a deep cut?
I think it's considered a hit. If it's on 40 licks, it's a hit.
Okay.
So then you can't always get what you want, like hit. Now, this is the moment in the show where they let Keith sing 2 songs.
Oh, no.
So he sings a song. Now, this is a deep cut because I don't really know it. You Got Silver. You know what I mean? Just don't know it. And that's a slower song, and he doesn't have to hit. He doesn't have to scream to do it. It's like, okay. Then the guitar riff hits for his second song, and it's Little T&A. I think you know that song. It's like, so that goes off. As guitarist, him and everything, they're crushing it on it. But he's trying to sing, and they proceed to, like, the backup singers are doing all the heavy lifting. All the heavy lifting, right? So they're like, okay, that's done. It's back to the show. So they play Sympathy for the Devil. Now, Keith finishes his set, and we go right into a fucking murderer's row of 6 songs before the encore break. So it's Sympathy for the Devil, Honky Tonk Woman, Miss You. Then they hit Give Me Shelter, right? Which is, they have that has a female singer on it. So they kind of introduce her, and her name was Chantel Hayes.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, and this beautiful woman comes out with the best mocha skin I've ever seen, right?
And not second best, but all right.
No, the best. The second best is, I know who that is, but this trumps that one. So she comes out, and she sings with them, and she's singing, and she has a gospel voice. You know what I'm talking about? Like one of those that just has power to it.
Yep.
And it's hitting me in the chest, and she's singing just a shot away, and she's looking into the camera, so she's on the big screen. But I could tell by where she's looking on the big screen that she's looking at me, Joe. She's looking at me, and she's looking into my eyes. And I've never loved that hard before, and will never love that hard again. We had a moment, Joe. We had a moment. But she was so good, I ended up looking her up. And she's done some stuff. She had a very Tina Turner vibe to her. And she did like an off-Broadway show about Tina Turner. So I was like, oh, this is so good. So good. Then they do Paint It Black and Jumpin' Jack Flash. And they leave the stage. And I'm like, okay, I hope they come back for their encore. Spoiler alert, they did. They do one last song off the new album. It's still pretty good. And then they close with I Can't Get No Satisfaction. Just a crazy show. Like I said, Mick is running up and down. They're playing guitar. They had other people on drums. The drummer was ridiculous. Everything sounded great. Couldn't hear a backtrack if there was one. So Mick sounded really, really good. I'm really happy that I saw the Stones. It was like something I'm glad I did, and I paid all the money for. And I forgot what I paid, and Josh gave me the ticket like later on. He's like, here's your ticket to take home. And he's like, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm saying how much we paid for it. And I'm not going to say how much we paid for it, but he's like, you do know the price you have in your head is half of what we actually paid? Like, no. And he's like, yes. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like the show that much because of it. And I said, no, I still loved it. But I would have never known. He goes, no, you would have looked at the ticket. I said, no, I'm going to take that ticket home and put it with the rest of my concert tickets in an envelope that I have on a dresser somewhere and never look at it again. But the tickets were way more than I had originally thought. And I was like, luckily he's a good guy. I was like, I did pay you all of that. And he's like, yeah. And I said, okay, then I don't care. It's no more money out of my pocket.
Yeah, it's money that's gone.
Yes, and I paid more for less, you know?
There you go.
And I will say this, and it's going to tell a story about somebody who used to come into the comic shop. So I love the Stones. I was never a big Stones guy back in the day, but I know all their hits. And this person would come in the shop and talk on Facebook about certain things, and the Rolling Stones came up, and a lot of us at the shop were a Rolling Stones fan. And they said online, they're like, I don't understand what everybody sees in the Rolling Stones and Mick Jagger as a frontman. Like, all right, take the music out of it. Like, whether or not you like the style or whatever. Mick Jagger, Joe, would you consider maybe the most iconic frontman ever? If not, on the Mount Rushmore of frontmen, right?
Okay. I have biases. Mm-hmm. I could give him top 3.
Oh, fair enough. But you know what I mean? Like just saying nowhere near kind of, you know what I mean? Like, I don't get it. How could he be a good frontman kind of a deal? So, and now, and in the shop, this kind of comes up, and they're talking about the music. Now, this person may like a band with a guy who doesn't even own his real hat. So he's in the shop and he's talking, and he's just like bad mouthing the Stones and their music, and he's like, do they have like their music isn't really good, right? And it's like, and we're all like kind of like, nah, the Stones are universally like kind of like pretty good in our head. And as he's leaving, I kind of go, you know what, guys? I kind of get it. You know, their 5th greatest hits album had a little filler, so I can kind of like see it. And they all started laughing. Joe, that is one of my favorite jokes that I've ever crafted. It's not hitting here, but I love that joke. I love that joke. That, to me, that joke is perfect. I do not care. It is insulting somebody. Like, yeah, I get it. They're not good. Their 5th greatest hits album has a little filler on it. And he was not happy with me as he left.
When you went down the set list and you're naming off the songs, and listen, we could sit here and argue whether you're a Rolling Stones fan or not, whatever your opinion of them is or whatever, but just you saying the names of those songs, I can't imagine 80% of those songs that you mentioned, when people hear the name of that song, they know that song. Whether they like it or not, they know it. They've heard it. They could probably hum it. They probably know the chorus. Right.
So then they play, because the show sold out, they played the Meadowlands again, and they play a lot of the songs, but they swap out a couple of songs. They swap out Shattered and put in Bitch. They swapped out something else and put in Heartbreaker. I'm trying to think. There's a couple other, Midnight Rambler they worked in, and I'm like already they swapped out 3 mega hits and put in 3 new mega hits.
Right.
I'm like, and it's a 19 song set, and at no point other than the one Keith song and the 3 new songs, I'm like, I don't know what more you could ask for in it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I enjoyed my time, came home, though getting home at 3 a.m. and then getting up the next day, that my ass was dragging on Friday. I kind of went, I'm not even going into the Cinnabon today.
Listen, I don't do nothing on school nights, man, you know?
But you know what? When you own the Cinnabon, you frost those buns, not me.
Exactly.
Make sure you get all the undercooked dough ready to go with frosting.
Just the inside that's undercooked, anyway.
Yeah, well, that's all that you need.
It evens out. But I'm glad you had a good time with the Rolling Stones. I'm glad there was no incidents, no problems. I really wish there was a way that I could relay Josh's ticket opportunity to the Toy Boys.
Right.
Because there's a big thing in the world. And again, I don't know what Josh is doing with his tickets, right? But there's a big thing of grading tickets, right?
Right.
And typically you don't get tickets because everything's digital. You don't get physical tickets these days unless you get comps or something.
Right.
And I know you had mentioned the Josh ticket opportunity before, but it's been a while since you've mentioned it. And yeah, I don't know.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I kind of explained what it was. So.
No, you explained what it was here. You probably explained what it was before.
Right.
But I'm just saying now, this explanation, I can only hope somebody that's in the Toy Boy group relays this to the Toy Boys so that they can start running this opportunity for themselves.
I like the idea now that I know that they grade tickets. I may have a super rare MetLife Rolling Stones ticket.
Right.
Mint on minty, you know what I mean?
Right. Untorn or whatever it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they don't tear them anymore because they scan them, but yes. Yeah. Let's just say firm at the perforated edge.
There you go. Right. That was the other thing I was going to say, because even if it's just a little wobbly at the perforated edge, that goes from a 9.8 to a 9.2 on the grading, you know?
Right. You don't want that.
Yeah. But typically it's, obviously rarity is one thing, venue is another thing. A lot of it is, it's not so much, obviously, it's wrestling stuff. So it's not so much as concerts, but like obviously if it was like, say, the first time the Stones played like a new venue, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they change the Meadowlands over to whatever the new name of the building is, right?
MetLife Stadium, yeah.
Right. Or is this the first time that they played the Meadowlands as MetLife Stadium?
I get what you mean, yeah.
You know what I mean? So like those like sort of like weird first milestones is what you would, you know, those are the concert tickets that would be worth a bunch of money, you know?
Right. I hope they don't do it because I want to keep it just for me and Josh.
I'm sure there's other people out there that are doing it, but they're maybe not as kind as you and Josh, let's say.
Yeah. Josh is hit every time
that
I've gone, you know, so I'll give it to him. Josh is persistent.
Mm-hmm. But he's not persistent in a way that's troublesome or annoying or...
For like, ticket takers.
Or rude or anything like that. Like, those are not vibes that you get from Josh.
No. Now, if you want to talk about asking for art, that's a whole nother story.
All right. Well, before we expose more of his personal wheelings and dealings, thank you, everyone, for listening. This was episode 497 of Longbox Heroes After Dark. Be sure to go sign up for the Patreon. Patreon.com/LongboxHeroes. Maybe you did. Maybe you're listening to this before the main show comes out. And you'll get like maybe like 1 or 2 secret jokes that we put in there for, you know, the people that pay that extra $5. That's what that $5 for. An extra 1 to 2 jokes a week, really.
Pretty much.
As a, like, you get them fresh, as opposed to like you listen to the main show and then 2 days later, 3 days later, you listen to After Dark, and then you try to put that puzzle together backwards. Yeah,
and the correct listening order is the always way to go.
Yep, exactly. All right, everybody, thank you very much for listening. Thanks for your support. Thanks for everything. And we'll see you next week.
You're listening to the soon-to-be-named network, the Lamborghini of podcast networks.